Most Americans do not think about the Philippines when they think about great power competition, but they should, because this country, spread across the Western Pacific, has become one of the most important places where American power and Chinese pressure now meet. The Philippines is not one island. It is an archipelago of more than 7,000 islands, sitting between the South China Sea, a Philippine Sea, Taiwan, Indonesia, and the open Pacific. That geography gives it a role much larger than many outsiders assume. For centuries, the Philippines were shaped by empire, trade, religion, and naval power. Spain ruled the islands for more than 300 years. Then, after the Spanish-American War, the United States took control. After World War II, the Philippines became independent, but its connection with the United States did not disappear. That history matters today. The Philippines is not just another country in Southeast Asia. It is a treaty ally of the United States, with deep military ties and a front-row seat to the rise of China, and now that front-row seat has become a front line. The reason is simple. China is trying to make the South China Sea a place where its power is felt every day. Not only through warships, but through Coast Guard vessels, maritime militia, artificial islands, patrols, warnings, water cannon and constant pressure. For the Philippines, this is not an abstract debate about lines on a map. It affects fishermen. It affects resupply missions. It affects reefs, shoals, patrol vessels, and the basic question of whether a smaller country can use waters it claims as its own. Scarborough Shoal and Second Thomas Shoal are not famous in most American homes, but in Asian security they matter. They show how China can push without starting a formal war. They show how gray zone pressure works. And they explain why Manila has moved closer again to Washington. For the United States, this is not charity, it is geography. If the United States wants to remain a Pacific power, it needs allies, access, airfields, ports and positions that connect the South China Sea, Taiwan, Japan, Guam, and the wider Pacific. The Philippines sits near all of them, from northern Luzon. Taiwan is close. From Palawan, the disputed waters of the South China Sea are close. From Philippine territory, American and Allied forces can think about surveillance, coastal defense, sea lanes, and rapid movement across a region where distance is one of the greatest military problems. That is why the old alliance is becoming important again. The United States and the Philippines signed their Mutual Defense Treaty in 1951. During the Cold War, the Philippines hosted major American bases. After those bases closed, the relationship became less central. Then China rose. The South China Sea became more contested, and the old geography started to matter again. Today, Washington does not need to recreate the old base system. It needs access. It needs places where forces can rotate, train, store equipment, refuel, and operate with Philippine forces. That may sound technical. It is not. Access is power. In a crisis, a runway matters. A port matters. A storage site matters. A radar position matters. A place to move forces quickly matters. And in the Western Pacific, every island, every strait, and every airfield can change the calculation. This is why Beijing pays attention. China can build ships. It can build missiles. It can expand its coast guard. It can build artificial islands. It can pressure its neighbors, and it can challenge American influence. But China cannot move the Philippines. The country sits on the edge of China's maritime ambitions. It is close to the South China Sea. It is close to Taiwan. It is close to sea lanes that matter to the global economy. And it is part of the wider island chain that complicates China's path from its coast to the open Pacific. This does not mean the Philippines can stop China alone. It cannot, but it can make China's problem harder. If the Philippines cooperates closely with the United States, then China must think not only about Taiwan, not only about Japan, and not only about Guam. It must also think about American access south of Taiwan and beside the South China Sea. That creates a wider strategic problem for Beijing. A Taiwan crisis would not happen in isolation. A South China Sea crisis would not stay neatly inside one body of water. A confrontation near Philippine vessels could raise questions about American commitments. The map starts to connect Taiwan, the Luzon Strait, the South China Sea, Palawan, Guam, Japan, and the Philippine archipelago are parts of one military geography. But the Philippines is not just an American platform. It is not simply a pawn on a United States-China chessboard. It has its own interests. It wants to defend its waters. It wants to protect its fishermen. It wants investment, trade, and stability. It does not want to become the battlefield of a great power war. That makes its position difficult. China is a powerful neighbor. The United States is a distant ally. The Philippines lives with the consequences of both. Move too far toward China, and it risks losing control over its maritime claims. Move too far toward the United States, and it risks becoming more exposed in any confrontation with Beijing. This is the central dilemma. The Philippines needs American support because China is too large to confront alone. But American support also makes the Philippines more important in Chinese military planning. Security and danger grow together. For Americans, the lesson is clear. The future balance of power in Asia will not be decided only by aircraft carriers, stealth aircraft, or speeches in Washington. It will also be decided by geography, alliances, access agreements, Coast Guard confrontations, and the decisions of countries Americans rarely think about. The Philippines is one of those countries. It is not the largest power in Asia. It is not the richest. It is not the strongest military force in the region, but it sits in the right place, at the wrong time, between a rising China, a committed United States, and a maritime region where small incidents can carry strategic consequences. If Taiwan is the most dangerous flashpoint in Asia, the Philippines may be one of the places that decides how much room China has to move before a crisis even begins. That is why Philippines matters, not because it can dominate the Pacific, but because it sits where geography, alliance politics, and Chinese pressure now collide, and in great power competition that can be enough to turn an overlooked country into a front line. If you found this analysis useful, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next report.